one of the most profound principles that you can learn in the game of marketing and advertising, particularly advertising. Everybody these days is advertising on platforms such as Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. A lot of the times it's interruptive advertising. And let's just take Facebook, for example. People are usually scanning. Same with Instagram. People are usually scanning. Their attention is in motion. And what's happening there is that psychologically their brain, as they scan from one post to the next, one video to the next, what they're doing is the brain is psychologically asking a question of every post or ad or any landing page. Is relevant to all aspects of advertising. And that question is, are you of interest to me? And it takes literally a split second. I don't know exactly what it is, but maybe it's 20% of a second for the brain to instantly determine whether or not this is of personal interest to me or not. And people don't really understand how short a time period they have to capture attention. And when I was with Halbert, this was a very profound lesson that he was teaching me. And because the whole idea is someone's attention that's in motion is really hard to stop. So it brings up this question, how do you stop someone's attention once it's in motion? And you got to start from the perspective of what is the absolute most powerful way to capture someone's attention. There's a variety of different ways that you can do it, but the most powerful way to capture someone's attention, the most captivating way to trigger a human being's attention is literally to call out their name. Mm-hmm. If someone is walking down the street and they've got a bag in one hand, the phone in the other hand, they're totally engrossed in the conversation. It's very, very difficult to do anything to get that person's attention. But if all of a sudden you were to shout across the street and call out their name, then it actually is a trigger. If they can hear their name, it's next to impossible to not turn around. It's like a trigger meaning that it's a psychological response that they don't really have control over. The trigger at play there is called the identification trigger. So if you call out someone's name, no matter what's going on, if they actually hear their name, they're going to turn around. It's impossible for a human being, next to impossible for a human being in that situation to hear their name and not turn around. So this is the identification trigger. Obviously, in advertising, you can't always call out everybody's name in your ad. You can't customize each ad to every person that's viewing a Facebook feed, as an example. So you have to go one step down from that. And one step down from that is to target people via their identities. So if you are a carpenter, by putting the word carpenter like up front in your headline, in your post, that's very likely to capture someone's attention, because if they are a carpenter, they know they're a carpenter and their brain is asking, is this of personal interest to me? Their whole identity, their whole lifestyle, everything that they are as a human being is built around this identity of being a carpenter. Then bang, you're going to be able to capture their attention. And I used to teach people Facebook ads, and I had all of these formulas that we would use to capture people's attention. And one of the formulas that I used to use in Facebook ads, text ads, is I would get the identity of the person that we were targeting, and I would put it in all caps at the very beginning of the very first word, because again, you only have like perhaps 20% of a second to capture someone's attention. So if I was targeting carpenters, for example, in all caps, the very first word at the top of the ad would be carpenters, : and that would essentially get that immediate yes response. Are you of personal interest to me? Yes. Yes, I am. And that would stop for a microsecond. That would stop someone's attention that is in motion. It would stop the movement. It would get them to stop just for a split second. And then the next formula, the next element of that formula that would pull them in, because it's not good enough to just stop them. You have to stop them and pull them in. So what I found after testing was, if you have that identity trigger at the beginning, carpenters, : and then the very next thing after the colon is a short, punchy question. I'm just going to make it up. Carpenters, : need more clients, ? And that hook, so you stop them and then instantly you pull them in. This whole concept, how to stop someone's attention being in motion, it's actually quite a massive topic. And I tested this in the newspapers. I tested that if you put the identifier as the first word or two in a headline, that headline tends to convert better than a headline that puts the identifier later on in the headline. Meaning that literally the first word, just the very first word, it needs to be strong enough to capture someone's attention. So if you have an 8-word headline, what's interesting is if you start that headline with an identifier, it's more likely to convert than if you started that headline with another word and had the identifier later on. So for example, if I was in the heart market, so I would start the headline with heart patients. That performed better than a headline that ended in heart patients or had the words heart patients in the middle of the headline. The power of the identity trigger, it's all based around capturing someone's attention. There are all these studies out there to talk about how long someone spends on your website when they land there for the first time. They're gone in seconds. They're gone in literally seconds. And it's because they bounce on your page, they land, and then they say, is this of personal interest to me? They might only read the first 1 or 2 words in the headline. And if it doesn't connect, they're gone. They might not even read the rest of the headline. So it's a huge topic.
Amazingly powerful trigger, identity trigger. And yet your son has mastered the ability to ignore his mother calling his name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is a very conscious thing. It's not a trigger. It's a conscious decision to ignore.
In fact, he accelerates.
Yeah. Well, even the whole topic of triggers is fascinating. I got into this because of Halbert and John Carlton, and these guys were masters of triggers and just geniuses at it. If you can truly get your head into the game of triggers and you can develop a love for them, these triggers are so powerful, they can just earn you a fortune. Like the best advertisers out there have several triggers or more in every single sentence. Like the VSL advertisers out there, 90% of those guys have really lost the understanding of what great advertising is. When I was with Gary, he used to say to me, if you can write a half-page newspaper ad and make it work, everything else that you ever do from that point forward will be simple for you. Because if you can sell millions of dollars worth of product from 750 words, like forcing you down into a place where every sentence, and not just every sentence, but every word in that sentence has got to be so powerful that it generates hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it really puts this powerful emphasis on how do I make each and every sentence as lucrative and as profitable and as powerful as it can possibly be. And if that line of thinking points you into triggers, psychological things that you can say that stimulate uncontrollable reactions in the people who are reading. Just like a man, if you put a man in a room and you sit him down and then you bring in this gorgeous, voluptuous woman, he might be totally in love with his wife. He might be happily married, but that guy's pupils are going to dilate. And he has no control over that. Mm-hmm. That's because the woman is the stimulus and the uncontrollable response is the pupils dilating. Therefore, the stimulus has triggered the response. These are triggers. There are words, tactics, strategies in advertising that trigger a uncontrollable response. One of them that we've just been speaking about is the identity trigger.